What's going on? This is Shamus with the Educate to Elevate podcast coming to you on a beautiful Thursday. Today is a special day for me, for these two individuals. I'll let them introduce themselves because we kind of have a similar story. But this is Tiffany High and Josh High. Please introduce yourself. My favorite couple in the industry. Welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thanks for having us on. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Josh.
And
we're here based out of Columbus, and we're just ready to rock this out and add as much value as possible, man.
I appreciate that. One thing, I came to your 2-day event, and I said this hands down. And I I was at a studio yesterday, recorded some content, and a guy came in, and I had mentioned your name. He's like, "I just talked to Tiffany. He's coming to your event next month. His name is Napoleon." And I was like, "Oh,
Okay.
yeah, they're the real deal." He was like, "Is it?" I was like, "They definitely the real deal." One thing I noticed about you guys when I came there was the office and company culture. That was super important to me. I don't see that in a lot of other events I go to, offices I go to. I don't really see that. So before we even go there, my first question to my favorite couple in the industry is, how did you guys meet? That's what I want to hear.
Oh, man. Tiff's version of the story is a little more entertaining, so I'll let her describe this one.
Yeah. So it kind of leads into the story of actually how I got into real estate. But long story short, right before we met, I had gotten a phone call weeks before that. My little brother just had gotten diagnosed with cancer. And man, he told me to cry during, for some reason, I tell the story a lot. I might tear up.
Hey. Go ahead. It's
I
okay.
can't tell the story.
It's okay. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
So as a result of that, she was in Columbus and made the decision to move back closer to home.
Dude, you got me crying. I don't know why.
Hey, I told you this is what I do on my podcast.
I don't know why I'm emotional over it. It's probably because we were just talking about it this morning.
Yeah.
So she made the decision to move closer to home, and had a huge opportunity with another organization that was closer to her parents. But little did she know that she'd be traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and just about 5-6 days a week. So this whole move to be closer to home, to be there, and really a support system for her family and for her brother, resulted in her being on the road all the time. And after about a year into that role and a year into his journey, really took a step back and asked herself, an honest question, like, can I continue to do this and really be the mom that I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And have the relationship and marriage and everything that I want to have? And the answer to that was obviously like, no, we've got to make a change. And I don't know if you want to talk about kind of like your parents in that situation and really the turning point.
Yeah, it's okay,
You
Tiffany.
tell them how we met in that story?
Not yet. We're getting there.
Oh, yeah. So if we backtrack a little bit, I had just gotten this news, and God always does things in the way that he wants them done. But on my drive home from that job that I quit, knowing that I had to take the action that it took to go help my family, somehow within like 48 hours, the executive vice president of Owens Corning Global found out about the situation. So I don't know if he talked to a general manager at my old company or whatever, but I get this random phone call on my drive, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the vice president of Owens Corning in this department. I heard that you just left your job because of your brother. And, long story short, I know that you're from Northwest Ohio. We're probably 45 minutes from your family's home, and we need somebody with refining experience." And I'm like, wow, this is really random that I'm getting this call. And so I thought, sure, I just didn't know what to say. And then he goes, "Can you come in for an interview tomorrow?" And I come in for an interview the next day, and I have all these executives surrounding me. It was like 1:8 in this interview. And it was like the most intimidating thing I've ever been through on an interview. And anyways, they gave me a job offer on the spot that day before I left. And I took the role. I'm in my first week of being in that role, obviously very emotional about what's going on in my life. And I'm like, I got to get out. I need a drink. I got to see the city, and I go up to this girl. I'm like, you look fun. Let's go out. So we go out that night. I had a few too many drinks. I'm on the dance floor, and I see Josh across the bar. And anyways, that's the night we met, and it's really been history ever since. But during that time period, Josh was also going through a situation where his dad, who is now passed away from cancer, was going through a similar story. And that's kind of what, brought us together emotionally in that, in the beginning of our relationship. And I just think it really created the foundation for who we are as a couple today on how we met.
Yeah.
And so, everything kind of guided towards other stories in the future. And ultimately what ended up happening after that was I had taken that role to be closer to my family, but I didn't realize I was going to be on a plane every week.
Okay.
And so I'm like 5 months into this journey, and I'm sitting in Nationwide Children's Hospital, and my parents are sitting across the room. And I remember looking up thinking like, man, how have you not physically left my brother's side since the day he's been in this hospital? Because they owned a few companies. And they both looked at me and said, well, we have teams that are stepping it up right now. Like, that's why we're able to be here. And I don't know, that just spoke to me. And I didn't really know what it meant. I just knew that what I was doing that day wasn't going to give me what I needed to be a mom someday. And I knew, like, out of everything in my life, I knew I wanted to be a mom. And so I walked in. It was actually Good Friday that week. So it's like I felt like God talking to me because it happened to be Easter weekend, or Easter. And so I brought my manager in on a vacation day, and just said, look, man, I have to go after something else. And I don't know what it is, because I didn't know it was real estate at the time. I just said, I have to go make a change in order to become the person that I need to be the mom that I know that I'm going to become someday. And so I took the action, and for 6 months, I did everything you can imagine. Tried being a nanny. That lasted 2 days. I was a bartender for a day. I sold rodent in fields. I just did so much shit that I was like, all right, what's next? What's next? And I go to tour a flip that I was actually private lending on, and I didn't really understand real estate at the time. And he walks me through the before and afters, which were very intriguing. And then I'm like, wait a second, you're going to make $80,000 on this? How did you do this? How did you learn? And I just started drilling him with questions. And I just made the decision that day to max out a credit card and figure it out. And so it was scary. I maxed out my credit card. Then for 6 months, I was getting leads. I was marketing because the program said, hey, go do mail, go do these things. And I did it. But then when the seller would call in, I was so intimidated to talk to the seller because I didn't learn the sales process, that I was letting it go to voicemail. I was scared to call back. And, it was just a journey to just getting my first deal. And I was actually 2 weeks out from getting that first deal. I looked at Josh and I said, if we do not get a deal by this date, I am calling my old manager and I'm going back to my job, because I didn't not like my job, but I love my career actually.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're going to do this. We got this. And we did. We got a house. And, it just led, once you do something a few times, it just gives you a little bit more self-confidence that you can do it. And then from there, we did about 40 flips our first year in business, because we didn't even know what wholesaling was, unfortunately. I probably could have done so much better that year if I knew what wholesaling was. And I had a situation happen where we took on our first flip. Unfortunately, we didn't have one-on-one mentors that I wish we could have called and said, hey, I'm getting ready to make this decision. Should I do it or not? And I didn't have that.
Gotcha.
And so I just went out and said I could figure it out on my own through YouTube University and a bunch of modules. And I lost $106,000 on that first rehab. But on top of it, I got into a lawsuit over it.
Oh, wow.
And so if I would have had that mentor, looking back, I would have never made that mistake, which led to a very hard year of just anxiety. Even though we made money, it was still the unknowns of not understanding. And so long story short, we were laying in bed one night and I'm like, dude, I'm not meant for this lawsuit stuff, losing money, And so I just said, I'm going to give it one last chance. And so I remember it was 1 a.m. I tapped Josh on the shoulder and I'm like, hey, I hope you don't mind. I just dropped 10 grand to go to another event. And we go to an event, and it was a wholesaling event.
Okay.
And I still going into that event, didn't understand what a wholesale was for some reason. Like, I understood the concept from YouTube, but, like, to physically draw out a contract, how you physically do something, I didn't get. And I'm sitting in this room and I'm like, "Man, there's 80 people in this room telling me that they sell paper." I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Mhm.
And so I was sitting there, I'm like, "Man, this is way more scalable, way more scalable." And then I left that event and I had 5 houses in contract to rehab, and I believe that we assigned all those instead of rehabbing, and we did $250,000 in assignments in 30 days.
That was your proof of concept right there.
And then it was just history ever since. So we did 165 wholesales the next year to 300 plus after that. And then, I had a bunch of other learning lessons, in that next year that led to some pretty important stories. But,
Mhm.
ultimately that's how we got started. So
I want to commend you because it's funny how you said that you chose your family over your work. I was in the music industry, and I don't think we ever talked about this before, but I had started a record label at the age of like 17, 18 years old, and I had top 10 records on Billboard and everything. And in the midst of my career, we had 2 newborns, well, 3 years old and then 1 year old. And I would get phone calls and they would be like, "Daddy, I hate you." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "You're not home. We never see you." I walked away from the music industry because of that. Right. Uh, and like I said, we had records on Billboard, videos on BET, MTV, and everything, but I chose my family over that. And I love music. To this day, I still love music, but there's just a side of me of how I grew up that I had to make sure that family was always first to me, no matter what. Money doesn't matter. I had a 7-figure company. I shut down in the midst of it because of the same thing, the stresses, and lawsuits, and everything. I'm like, man, there has to be an easier way. So I commend you on choosing your family over work, because I say this all the time. If somebody was to say, "Hey, I want you to run this Fortune 500 company. I'm gonna pay you 10 million a year, but you got to manage 5,000 people." Or somebody says, "Hey, I'm gonna pay you 500,000 a year, but you could travel around the world and do whatever you want." I'm taking the $500,000 because I'm smart enough to make money doing other things. And as I got older, I know I'm older. I'm about to be 50. I know I don't look it, but I'm about to be 50. I went through a lot. And that's why I say you as a couple, it's so important that when the entire world turns their back on you, you guys can stand back to back and say, "I got you." That is what I could say got me through ups and downs, make money, buy stuff, lose it, repoed foreclosure, and she stood right there with me. So I commend that. That's a beautiful thing. And I see you got the little one. That opens up another. I know for Josh, when I had my daughter, I became a puss after that. I'm like, all right, you got it, sweetie. It's whatever you say. So I understand that. So I commend you for that. When you after you spent that money and you said you lost $106,000, what was there a pivotal point that kind of made you angry? Like, you know what? I lost 106,000. I'm not gonna be taken out by this. I'm gonna turn around. Was it something that made you go back? Because most people would have tapped out. They'd have like, that's it. I'm done. What made you say, nah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna conquer this?
I don't think there's anything that made us angry, but this is the way that I've always, I'll never forget the moment where it got to a point where we were sitting at our dining room table and we called Tiff's father and said, "Hey, we're in this position. We've drained our cash. We're going to have to give this thing up and probably move in with you guys." And he said, "No, you're not doing that. And no, you're not giving up." He said, "You guys are really onto something here. And I think you need to keep going." And he said, "I'm not letting you move in either. You're gonna have to go figure it out." And really what that, if when I look back and I see the experience we had when we lost $106,000 on this property, it was really the moment of, Tony Robbins talks about this. Like, it was no turning back. We burned the boats,
Mhm.
right? There was no plan B. It was, this is what we're gonna do, and we're not accepting anything other than us achieving the result that we want. And it really forced us to grow. If we didn't have that experience,
Mhm.
that experience made us and forced us to go figure out what wholesaling was. In literally the next 12 months, we did 165 transactions.
Mhm.
We went from 40 flips to 165 wholesale deals in a 12-month period because of that experience. And who knows, if we don't have that experience, we could have been comfortable just doing 30, 40 flips a year.
Yeah.
And we could have always stayed that way.
Mhm.
But we really leveled up. And this is why, I tell Tiff all the time, I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And like we were meant to go through that experience because it leveled us up. And every hardship that we have, we learn something new and we grow from it. We're bigger, faster, stronger as a result of it. And that was just one of those moments that, like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that was 100% one of those moments that forced us to level up.
Yeah, and that's what I meant about the angry. Like it just gets under your skin. Like I'm not gonna let this, I'm not gonna let this take me out. Uh, in the current industry right now, with everything going up and down, what are you seeing over the next 6 to 12 months, especially for?
You know what? Hold on real quick. Yeah, I want to go back to something because I feel like it's important that people understand this because when we tell that story,
Mhm.
lately I feel like I have people saying, well, I don't have that father to tell me to keep going. So, like, this is the important piece of that story that you have to put yourself in rooms where people will tell you that.
Mhm.
It is your responsibility to take control over who you surround yourself with so that that's the type of people that are going to challenge you to keep going.
Mhm.
I don't give a shit if you don't have the father or the mother or the brother or the sister, but you do have the ability to put yourself in a room. And if you choose not to do that, that's on you.
Mhm.
You're choosing not to put yourself in a room of someone that's going to take that phone call when you need that person.
Mhm. 100%. And you know what's
And
funny?
I heard that this week and I just feel like we need to point that out because
It's accountability.
Yeah.
the
be
world's fucking soft.
Yeah.
People need to hear that you have the choice.
Mhm.
You have the choice to put yourself in a room like that.
It's accountability, and that's really what took me over the top. Was I was surrounded by people that didn't tell me you could do this, you could do that. I was the one that said, you know what, these are the rooms that I want to be in, and I paid to get into certain rooms, to get into certain events, and to talk to individuals. I'm gonna tell you something that's funny. When I closed my business down in 2016, we was doing a little bit over $1 million a year. We had about a 50, 60% profit margin. It was athletic apparel. We was going on a path of Nike. I'm like, I'm going after Phil Knight and Under Armour and Adidas, right? When we closed the company down, we lost everything. Houses, cars. We bought our daughter a vehicle for graduation. It got repoed. Those were the two lowest years of my life, but also the two that enlightened me the most because I started talking to God more. I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? I'm a good man. I'm a good husband. I'm a good father. I'm not out here robbing people. Why do I keep ending up in the same position? And what I realized in that whole process, it was funny. We was driving and I seen a bandit sign that said for real estate. And I'm like, all right, let me call this, see what it is. I went there and I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of individuals, but this is to what Tiffany said, putting yourself in a room. We're in foreclosure. Our property is in foreclosure, right? I don't know nothing about real estate. I'm just trying to figure all of this out. I know a bandit sign said you can make money selling real estate and everything. But as I'm sitting in a room, I said, all right, there's a bunch of people in here that's into real estate. I'm in foreclosure. Somebody got to be able to help me out. And I short sailed that house that I was in foreclosure. That was my first check. It was for somebody in that room. I went up, I said, hey, I got a house medicine foreclosure. I don't know if you can help me out. And I wound up making my first $5,000 off of just being in that room. Right. So I understand. So I get it when people's like, oh, I don't have a father supporting. I was like, bro, you don't need that. Like you have to dig within yourself. And that comes with having a sense of accountability. Like there's people counting on you. There's your parents, there's your kids. In my family, and I believe it, you always have that one person that changes everything. That everything that your family members say you can't do, you was the one that broke that and you did it. And I'll tell you something else that's funny. About 2 weeks ago, I found out I had 9 other brothers and sisters that I never even met. It was 13 of us. I never even met them. And then to start talking to them and to hear stories, I could see how we came from the same places, but my mind was different. A lot of them are still trapped where they was at, and they can't come out of it. So I understand what you say about people, and I do agree. People are getting soft and they're entitled and things like that. You got to take responsibility for that. So I know Tiffany really wanted to share that. That was she's like, I got to put this in here. Uh, okay, so where was we at? Let's talk about what do you see happening in the market right now over the next 12 to 24 months?
So let's just talk about first the last few months as the market shifted. Um, what we did was we pivoted where we buy, how we buy, and what price we buy.
Okay.
And, we have 25 to 27 rehabs in any given stage right now. And we're making money on all of them. So, I feel as if, it's created this level of fear of the unknown. But instead of most people right now are sitting back, staying in fear versus pivoting, adjusting, and adapting. But going into 2023, I mean, the interest rates just went down this week.
Yeah, I say that.
So I personally feel like by spring, summertime, look, there's a reason why JP Morgan and Blackstone just raised billions of dollars to buy real estate.
Yep.
So the big boys are coming back. It's just a matter of when, and they see what's coming. So they're going to buy on the dip, and we're in the dip. So, I think that everyone should get ready because I think it's coming back.
Yeah. And I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, to be honest, it's easier to lock up contracts now than it was 6 months ago. Right? Me personally, by myself, I locked up 11 contracts last month by myself. And it's easier. The conversations are easier. Talk to the people, the homeowners are easier because I hit them with data. I just show them, hey, this is what's happening in the market. These are the comps and things like that. So for new wholesalers that's coming into the game, what would you say, what approach would you take coming into the game right now?
I think first and foremost, you have to understand the underwriting process. And that's where I see a lot of wholesalers struggle is because they don't know how to underwrite, they don't make an accurate offer that's going to be profitable. So then they can't move the deal because they don't understand what their buyers are looking for. So if you're a new wholesaler getting into the game, you got to have a full understanding of why your buyers are making their buying decisions. That way you can reverse engineer and lock in a contract at the right price. Because I'm a big believer that dispo starts in acquisitions.
Yes, sir.
And if we don't understand that concept, it's going to be very, very, very hard.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Tiff?
I just think on top of underwriting, which we see as a big gap, is when we are a one-man show, I'm like, we actually just got out of one of our workshops the last couple days. And what I noticed is you're essentially an employee of yourself, right? So I know going into this that I need to be properly onboarded, trained, and mentored before I can just go build a team, especially for someone who may have not even come from a leadership or corporate background. And so because we don't properly get ourselves and invest into ourselves to get onboarded and managed and trained, then when we go to hire somebody, it's like 9 out of 10 stories you hear out there are, well, it all came crashing down just like it did for me. And so that's why we developed the program we have today, because if I look back in my first 3 years of journey, it almost killed me.
Yeah.
And it almost killed me because I just came in freelancing, taking little bits here and there and figuring it out. And here's a script. And I didn't really have a mentor holding my hand. And in corporate life, you come in, you get onboarded, you get trained, and then you're not only have a direct leader, but you have 3 other cross-functional mentors that help you get to where you build the skill sets you need to get to where you're going. Well, if you're just a one-man show and no one's helping you build these skill sets, when you go just say, oh, tomorrow I'm hiring someone, I decided I'm going to be a leader, but you didn't build the skill set, the know-how first, it's going to crash.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
And so if there's one lesson that I learned in my first few years, I would have given anything to go back to day one, because where I'm at today, I would have been in maybe 18 months instead of 6 years.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the right person So now this is why like I invest so much into my growth because I don't know what it's like to manage a company with 100 people. Like I've never done it.
Yeah.
So, and it's one thing to watch a course and it's another to be truly led or mentored or coached. Like that, there's two totally different things. It's like, yeah, I can learn how to flip a house through a course. Like I'm a pretty smart person. But when I'm in the midst of actually doing it and the contractor comes to me and is like, hey, materials cost $7,000. I need the check now so that I can go to the store and get it. And then they disappeared. Now I just lost $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you wish you could have picked up the phone and said, should I or should I not do this?
Yeah.
Like that is worth the $7,000 I just lost.
Yeah.
So there's your value to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I just think that right now what the recession has done is it's just created this unknown or level of fear that has pushed, especially like 1 to 2 man shows that are still new to the game, afraid to invest in themselves. And the reality is, you know, I hear a lot right now, like, well, I'm afraid to spend this money because what if I lose it?
Yeah.
Well, what if you don't spend this money and you lose it? So it's like, it's a catch-22, but it's, you know, you need to put yourself in a room of people that believe in that.
Yeah.
That like have been where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
Because we can't live in scarcity like that.
Yeah. And I'll be the first one to admit to this. I'm terrible at building teams. I've been in my company, my 7-figure company, I used to do the jobs of 15 people because I got tired of hiring people and firing them. And then I would let it build up so much that when I seen you walk through the door, I would just walk the other direction. I'm like, I can't believe this dummy works for me, right? And that's the wrong way to look at it. I'm sorry, right? There's a lot that I didn't know. And I'm now investing into my self-development to be a leader, how to communicate with people and talk to people, because it's true. When you didn't run a company like that, it's hard. Like I know how to lead my family, but 50 people, 100 people. And I think that's one of the things right now that is holding me back is because I'm pushing away the fact that I have to grow my team. And I'm like, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to just get 5 Navy SEALs. It's going to be all 5 of us in here. We don't need nobody else. And we're going to knock all of this out. How did you go about starting that process? Like, did you hire? I know you said you invested, but was there particular programs or like things that you went to go to learn about that would help you with that?
So my journey looks a little bit like this. I was definitely never afraid to invest in myself. Like I've always believed in myself more than anything. So I dropped a lot of money on education the first couple years. And I think if I could go back, I looked at some of the programs I joined and I should have been like, well, are they really at where I want to be? Like, am I hiring the right person? I don't know if I made some of the right decisions on that because I hired people that online they might have said that's where they were, but they weren't there.
Yeah.
And I had someone who doesn't really lead people telling me hire, do this, and this. And what it led to over the course of 3 years was waking up one day and hating who I was working with.
Yep.
Because no one told me how important core values are and culture and recruiting and interview process and all these things that it takes to just the first step is putting the right butt in the seat that one you even want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And so long story short, I built up this company of 12 acquisition managers and it wasn't that we weren't making money and doing hundreds of deals, but I didn't enjoy what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I just walked in one day and and my mentor was like, let it go. Like, so we had to walk in one day and let go of 3/4 of our people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was still to this day, the hardest day of my life. Because I felt very responsible for them and their families and, everything that went involved. And I remember saying like, if I keep going, like I refuse to ever be in this spot again.
Yeah.
And, as we continued to scale back up after that, we were fortunate we had a family friend that had scaled multiple companies off of building phone sales floors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had asked them to come in and handhold me. Literally, I paid the person to sit physically in my office every day.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just like, hey, let's meet biweekly one-on-one. No, I want you to sit in my office and tell me exactly what to do, when to do it, and everything that I do wrong.
Yeah.
And so we did for a few weeks. And it was a game changer for me because it what I learned over the course of like 6 weeks with that person would have taken me years to get to understanding, oh, the recruiting process is this, the interviewing, how do I attract the talent? How do I onboard them? How do I train them? How does this work? And I learned it in a much less period. And from there, I also recognized what my genius zone was. And my genius zone is truly being the visionary. And so, you know, if you go to look at my active side and then how I even built my education company, I knew from the start of what my skill set was this time. And so I knew that if I had a really good people leader in place, you know, the sky's the limit. And so this time I decided to go the opposite of how I'd built the company before. And not to mention on that day that I had to let those people go, I ended up in the hospital the next day and almost lost my life. And so I refused to put myself in that position again. So I have people leaders in place that are way better at that skill set than me while I am still learning. And now I can focus on my genius zone, and that's making an impact at a whole nother level.
I agree. Finding that genius zone is super, super important. And what's also really, really important is finding the right. I had just made a post about this, finding the right person to put in the right seat. That could be game changer. You know, for me, I used to hire off of emotion. Oh, they was vibe. They was cool. I like the clothes he had on. He should be good in the office. And that was the worst thing that I could have ever done.
I can see Aiden being like the drip.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he's dripping. Yeah, okay. Come on. He got, but I didn't, that was just me. Like I said, from 17 to 44, the time I when I was finished with school and I closed down that company, I didn't pick a book up. I was like, man, I'm a hustler. I don't need to read no damn books other than the Bible. There's nothing in the book. Then when I started picking books up, I was getting so many gems. I started going to like a book a week, right? That's really what changed me. Was like picking up books, reading books, finding the gems that these authors are putting in there, and then opening myself up to maybe, if you're here and you're trying to get to here, I think everything that you don't know is in between. It's right there. That's the spot. Like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. There's something that I don't know. Do you guys read a lot?
Oh yeah.
I
have a standard actually for myself. I listen to 30 minutes of an audiobook on my drive into the office every day.
Okay. What's your top?
I do, but I'm a little bit more ADD, so I make it through like one chapter at a time.
Oh yeah, I get the days where I could listen to 2 hours and then the others like 3 minutes, shut it off. My mind is telling me you can't sit here and do this and everything. What's some of your favorite books?
Man, there's one that absolutely changed me as a leader from a leadership perspective. I know you talked about right now you're really focusing on your leadership skills. Was John C. Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Yeah, okay.
It really opened my eyes to the power of building that skill set. And then outside of that, Way of the Wolf. If you are big into sales or want to better your sales, like specific tactics, Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort is a very good read. And I'll make a recommendation. Don't read the book, listen to the audio.
Gotcha.
Because he actually he speaks through the audio. So everything is enunciated perfectly. The tonality, everything is on point the way it's supposed to be.
Gotcha. For some reason, Josh, your voice keeps getting lower. I don't know if when you sit back.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's much better. So you say John, is that your top? Are those your top?
So those are two, yeah, for sure, that were instrumental, had immediate impact from the moment I read them. Those are two that just jumped out right at the top of my head.
Got you. What about you, Tiffany?
Now I was thinking about this and I was like thinking of all these business books. And then I thought, well, what's more impactful than that? And I go back to like when I made the decision. So, when I was in the hospital and I got out, I had recently joined a new church after that.
Okay.
And at the time I was in a mastermind group or whatever. And a group of us decided to start doing Bible studies at 5 a.m. together.
Okay.
And when we did that, we read the book Purpose Driven Life together.
Okay.
And I would have never gotten that close to that group of people if it wasn't for that mastermind. I think that was probably the most powerful thing that came out of that mastermind. Minus how to text and how to do this stuff. But it was an eye opener for me to feel like I could really focus on where am I trying to go with like-minded people in a small group like that.
Mhm.
And so I feel like that year was very impactful to where I'm at today. And so I think that book had a lot to do with, and not just the book, but the people I was talking about
Mhm.
the book with also helped. So I would encourage anyone who's trying to figure out like where you're trying to go, like get a few people in a group and read that book together in a small group setting.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I'm gonna definitely pick that one up. One of my favorite books is Outwitting the Devil,
Oh yeah,
Napoleon Hill.
that is one of the best books out there.
I
So
read
did
it
you
like
listen to
3
the
times.
audio?
Yeah, I got
Did
the
you listen
audio.
to the
Yeah, I got the audio and
Yeah.
I have the book. I couldn't stop. Like in a day and a half, I listened to the whole book. I was like, damn, this
Oh
makes
yeah,
so
you
much
can't
damn
get
sense.
off. Once you start, you can't stop that book.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the part when he's talking about when he was in the hotel room and he went back in the rocking chair and then he had a name. And it's funny because a lot of things like that, I was talking to a friend of mine and I told him, I said, I'm not a real religious person, even though I did start my discipleship this Sunday, my walk with God. All praises to the Most High. Uh, as I'm learning, there's this light that just goes on when you become enlightened. Like you live with empathy, helping people. And one thing that was scary for me over the last couple of years is I lost my motivation. I was like, I'm not motivated by money. Nothing drives me no more. When you're younger, you have your kids. So it was, I got my sons, my daughter, I got to take care of them. When they're older and they're out the house and that they could survive without you, like where do you dig from? That was my issue. Was like money don't fascinate me no more. I don't have no dream job. Then when I started realizing is that I'm here to impact individuals that look just like me, that came from where I came from, that don't have a voice. So I kind of changed everything over. I have a nonprofit now. That's the direction I'm going because the worst thing you can do is have your goals set and get there and feel unfulfilled. That's terrible. And that happened to me several times. I wanted to do this, I got there and I'm like, this is not what I wanted. And then I have to do something else and I get there and I'm like, this is not what I wanted. So digging down, going through my discipleship and hearing my conversations with God and everything, I know that's where I want to I want to move towards. So as a couple, what do you guys do to balance out work and life? Like, is there any? Josh is already smiling. He coming up to the
Oh,
microphone. He
hey,
said, "I'm gonna
I
need
got, I
this
got
one."
something for you. So
This
actually,
ought to be interesting. Let's hear it.
So rolling into 2023, this is something that's been really cool. And we just started to recognize, we would do a date periodically, and towards sometime in December, we had an awesome dinner in a pretty nice fancy like venue,
Mhm.
and we looked at each other, a couple days after that, and we asked ourselves, why don't we do this more often?
Mhm.
And really enjoy ourselves, enjoy each other, and really focus on us and our relationship. And so rolling into this year, we actually made it a point where every week we go to a fancier place that we've never been to.
Mhm.
And we have a date, and we've been doing that so far, and it's been a blast.
Yeah.
So right now we are intentionally like holding ourselves accountable to doing this once a week. So
And that's
It's hard,
good.
man.
that's been really nice.
And that's good because we was sitting somewhere and I was working on my calendar with somebody in my office and my wife was like, I don't see date night on the calendars. I'm like, we've been together 35 years. She's like, I don't care. I want date night. Put date night on there. So I understand.
So I think what's important in that, this is always a funny story to tell when people ask us this, but I was speaking at Tim Bross's event a couple years ago, and this guy raises his hand, and I came there to speak about business, and somehow because I'm like one female in the front of the room with 200 men, somehow it turns into like this personal conversation from audience to me. And one guy raises his hand and says, how do you and Josh make time for each other? Because me and my wife like never have time, and it's impacting things. And I go, what time do you wake up in the morning? And he goes, 7:30. Oh, okay.
Get up at
Sounds like
5.
you should wake up at 5 and fuck the shit out of your wife. And the whole point of the story is like the whole point of the story is that we have choices, and it's never going to be balanced. So like
yeah.
we're all fooling ourselves if we think that because once me and him are balanced, then I'm probably going to get a complaint at work that I'm not present enough or something
Yeah.
like that. Like it's always something next.
Yeah. You always
And so
got
I think that it's like we have to be okay with knowing that it won't be balanced and that
True.
each one of these important segments in our life go through seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when we were starting to grow education, for example, we made a pact between each other that, hey, we know that this is a season. So it's my responsibility as a mother that from, 5:30 to 8, like I have to be a sailor so that Josh can be present at work in this build season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it just stems from like communicating with each other around those seasons and how can we make this the best season ever? Or can we give this season a deadline?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's important versus just passively saying, "Oh, we don't spend time." Well, let's give it a deadline of like how we can work towards this changing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And that's super important because they ask me all the time. They say, what's the secret rule of being with your wife for 35 years? And I said it's communication because, like you said, you have seasons and you outgrow each other. Like you may be going into a new you, and Josh is doing something that you don't like no more. So you talk to him about it, and vice versa. That's what happened with me and my wife. We always would outgrow each other, but we would come back to the table and sit like, hey, these are things that I can't tolerate anymore. Can you work on getting better at that? And we just talk. We just talk through everything. That's how we got through everything. So do you have any let's talk about your morning routines. Do you have anything that you do when you get up in the morning?
Dude, I used to be good at that, and then I had a kid, and now I'm like, I just want to sleep.
Yeah.
So I'm going through a season right now where I used to be like 5 a.m. workout, and then I did the soaky bed, and then I did this, and right now I'm like, you know what? I deserve to sleep.
I want to sleep.
So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at right now with my mornings because everything I used to do in the morning, I kind of shifted towards more at night.
Okay.
But I know Josh is he's the morning person.
Yeah, so I work out 4 days a week, and then on top of that, there's prayer every morning. I'm a very big believer in law of attraction,
Mhm.
so the visualization component has been a
Mhm.
game changer for me over the last few years. So workout, prayer, visualization, and learn something new. I talked about how I have a standard of where I listen to an audiobook for the 30-minute drive into the office every day.
Mhm.
Those are the things I do every morning.
Okay, perfect. Where do you see you guys in 5 years? Where do you see you at in this industry or in life period? Where do you see?
I wish I could answer 5 years from now, but every time we have a big vision, it seems to happen in 90 days.
Hey, that's good.
Or 12 months at the
Yeah.
latest, yeah.
Ultimately, I have always had this thing inside of me where, you look at some of my peers in the industry and they're putting thousands of people in seats and they're making a mass impact. And I just believe that if I could focus in on some core handful of leaders that I pour into, that they then, instead of me doing the 1,000 seats, if I can pour into 5 people that then do 1,000 seats,
Okay.
whether it's on my team or whatever, I've always just been big about like how many people can I realistically impact versus impacting core influencers that can impact out.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, I've been reflecting on that a lot lately because, I've obviously, impact is what matters to me at this point.
Mhm.
Money can only go so far.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that as we build this company, we always put impact first. And when we do that, I know the money will come and the growth will come, the careers will come, the opportunity will come.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I just know that I'm in a season of just pouring into my leadership team right now. And I think that a lot's going to come of it.
Yeah. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. What advice would you give to anybody new trying to get into wholesaling? Quick, if they're trying to come in, what's a couple of things you would tell them to focus on?
Don't figure it out on your own.
You said don't figure it out on your own.
Correct.
Yeah. That's definitely
And,
one.
and really piggybacking off of that is everybody always has this mindset of like, what's the golden marketing list? What's the golden marketing channel? But understanding that marketing efforts will create opportunities,
Mhm.
but it's a matter of our skill set to close those opportunities. That's most important.
Yeah.
Anything that you do, just as long as you get marketing out there, you will get the phone going.
Yeah.
Right. As long as the system's not broke, like the phones actually ring, but it's focusing on the skill sets that we have from a sales perspective to close the opportunities that our marketing efforts are creating. That's most important.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Tiffany, Josh, tell everybody where they can find you at. Hey, everybody that's listening, if you want to get in the game, the 2-day workshop, and I'm not saying this because I've been to the workshop. They are so detailed. After day 2, I was like, I can't even learn no more. I'm like, is there a replay for this? I can't even learn no more. And tell everybody where they can find you at, what programs you got coming up.
Yeah. I mean, we're on Instagram, Tiffany High Official and Josh High Official. Or if you want to jump on a call with us, you can go to tiffanyandjoshhigh.com and schedule a call. But ultimately, we have a few core programs, and we have this front end of, training where it's very fundamental in the sense of all of our marketing, our systems, how we reverse engineer how we spend our money and why we spend and where we spend, and all of our scripts and foundations and processes, which is critical before you go throw fuel in the fire and build a team. Because the last thing you want to do is go hire someone if you don't have onboarding built, you don't have trainings built, you don't have all the stuff that it takes for them to be successful. And then the 2-day workshop is the next step, where now we're going to teach you how to throw fuel in the fire of how do we recruit, onboard, train, and manage the team properly so that you can have the resources when you go home about what that looks like. Okay. And then we do have a 6-month program where now that you understand what that looks like, if you aren't that leader that it takes to get those people to where you want them to go, we're going to handhold you one-on-one and build a custom program around you and your situation.
Nice.
It's not like a one to many. It's a one message to all. It's a very custom to you define success, which is one of our core values in our education side is I don't care if you want to make $10,000 a month, $100,000 a month, $1 million. Like, we're going to custom build this plan to where you want to be.
Gotcha.
And I just think it's important that they get to define where they want to go, and versus me coming to you saying, hey, let's make $100,000 a month. Like that's not for everyone.
Yeah. Definitely.
So anyways, that's really the core of it. And ultimately, once we get on a call with, me and my team, then we'll identify like, where are you at in your journey to see what's best for you right now.
Perfect. For all my listeners, I'm telling you, follow these two right here. They're two of the best in the game. I've been watching them. I'm going to say it again before we end the podcast, my favorite couple in the industry, because a lot of things that you guys go through, I went through, so I understand how important it is to have that person next to you. Josh and Tiffany, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate y'all. Keep doing what you're doing, because trust me, you impact a lot of people. I know you may not know how many people you impact, but I have so many conversations and your names always come up. They're like, oh, Josh and Tiffany? I'm like, yeah, they're good people. Right? So keep doing what you're doing. I'm here for you if you ever need anything in Atlanta. And once again, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you having us on, and happy to help any way we can.
I better be seeing you again soon.
Got you. I got you.
Thanks for having us on.
Yes, ma'am.